right, welcome everybody. Welcome to Dissecting Tyrone, the podcast. I'm Jason.
I'm Brandon.
And we're about to get into part 2 of Dad Talk. You know, we were talking about being a father and fatherhood and how important it is to us, and we didn't want to rush the process, so we decided to make this a 2-part video. Let me start off the second part by asking, what are some of the challenges that you face as a father?
Man, I think some of the challenges that I face as a father is just tuning out that outside noise when it comes to trying to protect your son. And what I mean by that is you have social media, you have the news, you have negative images, unfortunately, of black and brown people, but then also trying to not jade their vision, but make sure that they can progress and move forward in life and still feel safe. Basically, make a safe space for them in your environment, because they already have to deal with craziness once they step out in this world. But just equipping them with the tools that they need is a challenge at times, because it's like, man, I know this is what happened when I was a kid, and I'm trying to steer you away from it, but you don't want to baby them so much that they don't experience things, or when they do experience something, they don't know how to deal with it. So I think that's one of the challenges. And then also managing a now soon to be semi-adult. He's going to have so many different thoughts that are going through his mind, different influences. But I know if I stay true to myself, keep him grounded, make sure that he has a relationship with God, make sure he has a relationship with himself, that he can take that step back and say, you know what, let me fall back and put some things in order, and then go back into this world, and then be able to move about and do what I need to do.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. That's a huge one. And just the fear of society. You know, like you were talking, like my oldest son is 22. He'll be 23 this year. He has a college degree. You know, he has no children. Like he has money in the account. He's saving. And your fear until they get to that point is, how do I get him to this point without ruining his life? You know, without joining gangs, you know, without, you know, getting a girl pregnant, without, you know, being girl crazy or having ambition. And it's a really tough thing to navigate, especially when you don't feel like you got those things instilled from your father, you know, prior. At the end of the day, though, you know, we talked before about just being there and doing your best. I feel like if you do everything with the right intent, then you'll get good results. You know, you just got to keep pushing and keep pushing and keep going.
Yeah, and I think another important thing that we fail to realize that it's there is our community. So we need to start tapping into our community. And what I mean by that is, if there's other men that you hang around that you think that would be a good fit, like basically looking like uncles or some type of a mentor, if you're bringing positiveness around these young boys, then they have no choice but to see it. Like, I have friends, I have friends out of state. If my son was ever to get out of pocket and he's walking down the street, you see him, I got people calling my phone like, hey, and then they're going to go check him like, no, get in the truck. This is what this is. But, I mean, my son is far from that. I don't see him doing that, knock on wood. But just having that community, it was funny because I normally, probably since he was a little kid, I cut his hair up until maybe this summer. And he was like, Dad, you do a great job, but can I just go to the barbershop? I'm like, you know what? I think it's time. It's cool. Because he would go in from time to time, just be on his tablet. But now just getting this sense from men of all walks of life who come in there and just hearing, listening, being around that, getting that osmosis, like taking it in, it also helps develop his mindset on what he may want to do, what he may not want to do. But it's still giving images of strong black men who are in this community at all walks of life. I mean, at any moment, you could have somebody who may just work a regular 9 to 5. You could have somebody who's into politics. You may have somebody who's in the business for themselves. And it's a big community, and all you need to do is open your mouth. So I think that's also important, is just the community that you keep around your children is going to be also taken in from your children.
Man, that's huge. My kids, I think Jade asked me one time, how many uncles I got? Because, like, man, I got bros. I got people that ride for me tough. I mean, I got a great circle, and I've been blessed to have a lot bigger circle than most people have. But they ride for me. I got friends that I can call right now, and if I need 10,000, that money gonna be there tonight. I got friends I can call right now. Hey, we got to ride on somebody, and they gonna be there tonight. You know, I got friends that just have my back through thick and thin, and Jay calls them all uncles. Jason calls them uncle. Like they're like Uncle Lim, Uncle Gerard, Uncle Mark, Uncle Bam. Like me and my buddy Bam was talking the other day, and he was like, "Bro, I don't think Jade, I don't think she knows I'm not her real uncle." And that's what you are, a real uncle. We laugh about it, but we have that community to help be like a cohesive unit of fatherhood. One thing that I want to talk about too that's important with fathers, stepdads. I never used the term stepdad because I always heard that there's no such thing as a stepfather, just fathers who step up, and that's the model that I live by. So when I got married, my ex-wife had 3 children, I had 3 children, we had one together, and that was a hard situation to navigate because they have an active father that's still in their life. So sometimes men can feel like their toes are getting stepped on when there's another man in the situation. But I'm thankful that my bonus children, which I like to say bonus children instead of stepchildren, I hate that term, but my bonus children, their grandparents, phenomenal human beings, like phenomenal human beings. And they kind of were like a bridge in that situation to make sure everything ran smoothly. And I think it worked. But, man, it's hard doing the role of father, but not necessarily getting the recognition of father. And it's difficult for some people to be in that role. And I had a lot of friends tell me being a stepfather it sucks. It's horrible because you do everything that a father does or supposed to do and you get none of the credit. But I go back to the thing of I don't need the credit. I don't need credit for helping this person be a better person or being a father figure to them or because I do it for people in the community. Like I have kids that I mentor, that I look out for, that I have their back. So if I'm with somebody, stepping up in that role is natural to me. It's like I feel like once you're a father, you're always a father. And you're going to be a father to any kid that's in your life, whether it's a mentorship or, that you're dating somebody. So I know that you're divorced. We both talked about us being divorced. How will you approach a situation when you meet a woman with children?
I think for me, by nature, I'm always going to be some type of a leader, father figure first. So I personally have never met, if anybody that I've dated, I haven't met their children. They haven't met my son, only for the simple fact, like when the timing is right, I think that's when maybe we kind of co-mingle if things get serious, something like that. But given the fact that if I were to get engaged with a woman who has children and we got serious, I think communication is going to be key because the way that I move is, hey, they do have a father. If the father is active, I respect that. I'm not trying to step on any toes. I come with the knowledge that I come with. But if we have common ground collectively, I think it's about the kids. It shouldn't be about what I got going on, what she got going on, what he has going on. It's about making sure that these kids have the support from every angle because you can never have enough support, and allowing the father to do his thing, but then also knowing like, hey, I'm here in the sense of if there's some times that I need to step in, I'm going to do that. I'm going to play that role. But again, I'm still going to give that respect as a father, and I would hope it would be the same with me. If my ex-wife decided to get serious with someone, I'm that father first. As long as we have that common ground, we cool. Now, if it gets sideways or I feel like my son is in danger, then we're gonna have some problems, like you said on the last episode. But you just, it's a sticky situation, but you just have to make sure that you know that your children has the best interest of whoever that next person is. So
True, I agree with that 1,000%. And for me, at the end of the day, this is my advice to men in that situation because I've been in that situation. Just be a father. You don't have to pick and choose how you're going to do it, how you're going to be. Just be a father. And usually the other parent will respect the fact that you're stepping up and that you're doing these things without trying to take their position. Like I don't try to take my bonus children's father's position. He's their father. I'm their father also. When I was married to their mom, I'm their stepfather. But it's a role that I have to take seriously, and I always treated them, raised them, and took care of them as if they were my own, with the understanding that they have a biological father who's doing the same thing, and our goal as a team is to be a team and raise them all together. And shout out to my bonus children's biological father and his wife, because they allow me to still be a part of their lives, which they don't have to. I'm not married to their mom anymore. So they don't have to allow me to have these relationships. Now, the kids are older, so they're able to have a relationship with me on their own, but they could definitely be a hindrance, but they never have. They've never been a hindrance. As a matter of fact, especially with the wife, that's who I communicate the most with. Like, she'll call me, hey, Jade's welcome to come over this week. We got Callie, which is his other daughters, who's the same age as Jade, and they're like, I tell them they could tell each other they're sisters, but they don't say it because they don't share the same parent, but they share siblings. But, say, hey, Jade, Callie's going to be over here. Jay's welcome to come, I'm like, great. Or I'll call her, hey, can Callie come? Like we all work together for the betterment of these children, because at the end of the day, it should only be about the kids.
Right. And I think that's another, it's a testament to you and the relationship that you have with them and how you carry yourself, because a lot of times I think people's egos get in the way. That's probably the biggest deterrent from having a healthy extended family is people's egos. If you go in with a situation like, no, it's my way or the highway, you don't really understand what you could be doing to your kids, because they're always watching you. You may not think that they are always watching you. So if you're getting out of pocket because you feel some type of way, or it's not supposed to be this, it's not supposed to be this, they're watching that, and they could rub off on them, or they can have resentment for you. So it's funny. So I was going through Facebook, Instagram, something like that last week, and I came across this reel where it was a father in the barbershop. He popped up in the barbershop because I guess his stepdad or whomever that was. So the stepdad or the mom's boyfriend was taking the son to get a haircut. Okay, what's wrong with that? And the father steps in, and I would assume, I don't know the full story, but I would assume that the father felt some type of way because maybe he didn't step up to go take his son to get a haircut, or even if it was on his off week, if you didn't have that established with the mother and the kid needed a haircut, well, the kid needed a haircut and somebody took him to go get a haircut. So the dad wanted to fight this guy in public and cause a big scene, but it's like this little young man might have been like 3 or 4 years old, and at the end of the day, if he's taking him to go get a haircut, that's benefiting you. Nobody's saying that you're a deadbeat father because you can't take him to go get a haircut. Maybe there are other circumstances that popped up, but it goes back to the ego. If you guys have a common understanding of it's kids first and everything else second, then I think you can have a healthy extended family relationship. If that's not set and you guys don't have those good boundaries, then it could potentially be a disaster.
No, I agree. And I watched that same video. And if you notice, the boyfriend called the mom and put her on the phone, and she's on speakerphone, and she says, you ain't did nothing in 2 years. And the guy didn't debate it. So I'm like, that's definitely ego.
Right.
I mean, so at the end of the day, and there's better ways to handle that. So at the end of the day, if you're like, hey, that's something, because, man, barbershops with your son, that's a different level. Like that, a lot of dads are like, hey, that's my thing. So if you're that way, you need to go to her and say, hey, listen, that's important to me. I take him to get his haircut, and then consistently show up to do it. And what a lot of people don't realize too is that if you have a good man in your life that's he'll help mitigate those situations. So, like, let's say, and this didn't happen, but let's say when I was with my ex, she was tripping with the biological dad, right? As a father, I'm gonna step in and say, hey, you know what? We're not doing that, because he just trying to be a dad, and that's his kid. But I think for me, I think the best way to take ego out of it is to remember that that's a job you can't get fired from. You can only quit.
Yep.
You can't get fired from it. You can only quit. Nobody can take your role unless you hand it to them. That's why I've never been intimidated by anybody, any of my kids' moms date or get with, whatever, because they can never take my place. They can add and be a great asset to my child. They can be beneficial to my child. I want them to be with good men that want to look at my child as their own, right? I want them to do that, but they can never take my place unless I hand it to them. And I think a lot of men forget that. Like, if you're doing your job, there's nobody on this earth that's going to come in your child's life. Like right now, my bonus children love me to death. Love me to death. I love them to death. Them are my babies. Those are my babies. I love them. Like, those are my babies. Like, that was one of the hardest parts about the divorce, is knowing that I'm not going to be that father in their life anymore, right? They're my babies, right? But their dad is still their dad. And they look at their dad as their dad, and they love him as their father, and they love me as their stepfather. I don't take his place. You know, he's not threatened by me being active in their life, because we all know that we're working together to make them the best human beings possible.
And I think in that, going back to that barbershop situation, I think it hopefully, even though it ended or it was nasty and it played out in the public, hopefully the takeaway from that was he stepped up to be a father going forward. Hopefully it wasn't just something like, oh, I'm gonna cause a scene right now and revert back to what I normally do. If you're gonna fight that hard on camera, you got to fight that hard for your kid, because if not, like, what are we doing this for? And it basically, again, this conversation goes around the ego. Take the emotion out of it. Do it for the kids. Right. If it's not about the kids, then you're in it for the wrong reasons, and maybe you need to reevaluate something in your life so you can get more aligned with helping your kid or getting your kid the best cohesive community, because it takes a village to raise this nation. Hopefully you are just adding more to that village instead of taking away from it.
Facts. Now, one thing, see, I kind of went off in this little direction because, you know, since I was a stepfather, that's important. I want to address that. But I do want to get back to our original dad talk about us being fathers, dealing with our fathers and everything like that. One thing we both express is hurts that we had from our fathers. I believe we had to do a lot of healing in order to be good fathers and mend those relationships that we had with our fathers. What are some of the things you did to heal from the lack of your father being there?
I think some of the big things was definitely God, just praying. Like, my mom instilled God in me early on, and more so just from a spiritual perspective, just me taking the time out just to pray, just like, man, I want this relationship, but I don't know what to do. And just, I think the prayer is going to be twofold. So number one, I have to pray about it to manifest it. And then number two, I have to do some things and put some stuff in action for it to happen. And I think I did that. And I did everything that I could possibly do in that. So it was like, all right, well, if it's not working right now, I was so active and involved in other things, then it helped me take my mind in other places. And if my dad wasn't there, I'd go talk to my grandfather, his dad at the time, and get some knowledge from him, and go talk to my other grandfather. So being able to have those outlets, without a doubt, helped me get through the hurt that I did. But I also needed to go through some hurt so I can see what it was for myself, because, you know, when we're young, our dads are superheroes to us. They cannot do any wrong whatsoever. Like, if they were in your life, or the child knows their father, the dad could do whatever, and we like, oh, no, he's a superhero in my mind, and outside of abuse. So once you get past that, you're like, okay, well, he's just human like me. And once I seen that, I was like, all right, well, cool. I still hold him in high regard, but let me take a step back, because one thing I tell my son is, have love for the people that love you, and don't go out of your way to be an asshole to anyone. Make sure, like, you can always be kind and nice. Now, if they show you who they are, it's cool. It is what it is. So, and take it and believe that. But you don't have to go out of your way to be mean to someone. Just take it for what it is. So in my life, I took that, and I seen my dad for who he was. Once I was able to develop enough courage to start writing him and expressing myself to him, that was probably the biggest therapy that I got in that situation, because once I wrote that letter, I think I was stationed in North Carolina at the time, and I wrote this, it was probably like 5 or 6 page letter, front and back, and I put everything on the table. I mailed it to him, and like I told you, the last thing that I said is, if I never hear from you again, at least you know that I got love for you, and it is what it is. Sent that off, and that was that healing, and he took it. He had to take it in. I don't know if I think he said when he did get that, he broke down and he felt some type of way about it, but he had to own it. And that's the one thing that I will give my dad. In the last 5 years that we had of his life, he owned everything. He went back in his memory bank. He broke it down. He was like, listen, son, I was not a good father. I'm thankful that your mom did what she did. She stepped in when she stepped in because hadn't it been for her, you potentially could have been lost in this world. So he understood that, he recognized it, and he owned it. So that's another reason why I forgave my dad. That's another reason why I was able to move forward. Like in his last moments, he was in hospice care. I looked at him, I was like, "Hey, Dad, you looking kind of crazy right now." I was like, you need a haircut." I was like, "You want me to hook you up?" He was like, "Yeah, that would be nice, son." I mean, when I say he was looking like Wolfman Jack, looking crazy, so I brought all my barber stuff up to the hospice care facility and got him right, man. He was on cloud nine. You couldn't tell him anything that day. He was floating, but it was good to see his reaction, to see like he felt like a human again, and just sharing that experience, going from not talking to my dad or him not being in my life to me giving him his last haircut before he passed. Like that meant the world to me. So being able to do that, I think that was like my healing, and that's how I was able to get past all the hurt that I had for my dad, but continuously keeping God first and God in my life and my mom, my community, and my circle. Like that's what helped me through getting through that.
Man, that's it's crazy how similar a lot of our stories are. Because my dad, when he passed away and he was in hospice in the hospital, also we had a lot of those moments. Like I was there. You know, my siblings were there. We were all there, you know, for him together. I even say one thing that I thought was amazing was when my father took his last breath. We were all at we were at the hospice house, whatever it was, and we were all about to leave and go get some food, whatever, and come back. And my nephew called, my brother, and so he's on speakerphone talking to my dad, and so because of that phone call, we didn't leave. And during that phone call, my father took his last breath. But it happened as the phone call had ended. We were literally about to leave, and we were kissing him, hugging him, telling him we love you, we'll be back. So like my father passed away with us actively loving him. Like we were actively kissing him, telling him we love you, we'll be back, whatever, as he took his last breath. And you know, for me that was powerful because even though the majority of my life I didn't feel like my dad was there, by the end we had such a great relationship that I was there with him when things you know ended. So that I say that to say, also based on what you said, is that to the men out there listening, that it's never too late to be a father. It's never too late. You know, like I said, when my dad passed away, he was 84. You know, I'm a grown man with children of my own. But whenever I talk to my father, I'm 40 years old. Talking to my father, I felt like a little kid because there was this presence or this aura of like, man, this is my dad. You know, even at that age, I felt like a little kid. And my dad, the second he decided to step up and make things right, all the other stuff didn't matter anymore. Like it didn't matter anymore. Like it's never too late to step up and be a dad. And for me, when we talked about healing, my healing really came from my walk with God, you know, church, my prayer life. But I used to do music. I told you that before. And on my album, there was a song called Follow Me. And it was me and God talking to each other. And it was about my mother passing. It was about my fatherhood, about the things that hurt me the most in my life. And that song was so healing for me because it was really when I realized that, hey, like you said, you know, as fathers, we're our kids' first superheroes, right? That's who we look up to. That's who we aspire to be. And the man that I wanted to be was not necessarily the man that my father was. And if he had been in my life, I would have aspired to be the man that he was. And God couldn't have put all these people in my life, my mom and different people that came in, to create the man that I was supposed to be. So really, it was like in the song, it said, God said, I took him out of your life and replaced him, with the things that I know you needed. And that was important to me. And then last, but the biggest thing I always advocate for is therapy. Like I went to therapy, like I got help, like Black people. And this is people in general, but I'm speaking to our people in particular because it's such a huge issue in our community. Therapy does not mean you're crazy. Therapy means that you know that you need some tools to help you help yourself. And a therapist is trained on how to give you those tools for you to help you. They don't fix you. They don't correct you. They don't change you. They give you tools for you to help you quit acting like therapy is a monster or the boogeyman. Like, go get some therapy. So for me, that was one big aspect that helped me heal was my music, God, and therapy.
Okay. Yeah, we definitely have to normalize therapy because it's needed. I mean, in this crazy day and age, you got to decompress and be able to get this off your chest because a lot of times when things are weighing on you, you're not yourself if you're not getting it out a healthy way. We don't advocate for violence or anything like we definitely want to shy away from that, but getting out your hurt, getting out your feelings in a healthy way, that's the key to getting over whatever you're dealing with. And yeah, we definitely have to promote that healing like that. So
Definitely, I agree. Let me ask you this: being a father, what's the biggest lesson that you want to pass down to your son, your children?
always be true to yourself and honor your commitments. So I tell my son this all the time. We decide to, or he decides that, hey, I want to get active or involved in this. And a month or two down the road, he's like, I don't feel like doing this. I don't feel like doing this. I'm like, hey, son, you got to honor your commitment. But he doesn't want to do it. So then I'll break it down. I say, hey, listen, man, look at it from this standpoint. When you were born, my commitment was you. And at no point did I ever or will I ever waver from that. So, but could you imagine me saying, I'm done with you and you don't see me anymore? You don't see me for extended period of time. I said, that wouldn't be cool to you. That wouldn't be cool to me or your mother. I said, that's something that I should not hear you do. You honor your commitment. Now, you can go through that, honor your commitment and say, hey, this wasn't for me. So the next go around, you don't have to participate in it. But stressing that and then also being true to himself because he's a great kid. I mean, from his grades to sports to just a person in general. And he's very impressionable and impersonable on other kids. And a lot of times some kids will see this as, well, I don't like you because of you're popular. I don't like you because of this. So I always tell him like, hey man, you have to be aware of your surroundings as well. And it goes back to love who has love for you. And sometimes he may have a friend for this period of time. And he was so worried about like, man, this person just don't like me. This is and this. And it's like, I'm like, son, this is throwing you off. Like, what's this about? I said, sit down and let's talk. So we would sit down, we would chop it up. I'm like, all right, well, listen, man, at the end of the day, this is how you need to play it. Make sure that if this person is talking crazy to you, you let them know like, hey, we supposed to be cool or are we not cool? And then once he started figuring this out, and now he's able to start like distancing himself from people who shouldn't be around him. And I'm so thankful that it's happening now because a lot of times in our life, we could be older and have some type of influence or somebody in our life and we go with the flow, but this person is just soaking up your energy. They're not adding anything to you. So that him being able to identify this now is very important for me because down the road, and yes, there are going to be some times where people come with the sheep clothing, but they definitely some straight killers or some wolves. But at least he could start identifying some things and say, all right, this ain't cool. You're not really for me. Let me go this way. So those are the two big things that I'm trying to make sure that my son is very sound in going forward in life.
That's good. Those are good things right there. For me, I think definitely a lot of what you said also, but one thing I always tell my children is let your yea be yea and your nay be nay. That's what the Bible says. So when you say yes or you say no, it is what it is. You don't have to get loud about it. You don't have to fight about it. You don't have to do whatever. If you're not going to do something or you are going to do something, then your yes is yes, your no is no. And like you said, but you honor that commitment. Your name as a man, your name is everything. And I feel like I've tried to teach my children to take pride in being a man. I know nowadays with, equality and gender roles, and I know it's so taboo to still be like a traditional man, but that's what I teach my children to be. I'm like, you a man, through and through, so be a man. And so for me, that's an important lesson right there. Is just stand on your word and let your name mean something.
Yeah, I definitely would agree. And it's tough. And like you said, there's no handbook to parenting, but we just learn as we go. And you take these notes, you adjust on the fly. So just being a parent in general is always going to be some type of adversity, but it's like what you do to make it through that adversity. And I think another big thing is if your kid has a hobby and they're into something, maybe sometimes is you get into that hobby and you try to develop a relationship or a bond from that perspective, because now you're talking to them. And it's funny because I recall like my son, it was one time I had this keyboard. I don't even know where I got the keyboard from. But I'm a big researcher, and I try to make sure that he's a big researcher. Anything that you need, you could figure it out in this day and age with technology at your fingertips. So he was probably like about 10 years old, maybe 11 years old, and I heard some piano playing. I'm like, man, where is this coming from? So I come out and I'm watching him. He's on YouTube learning how to play this keyboard. I'm like, okay. And then he start like playing songs, and I'm like, dude, if you could teach yourself to play this piano on the fly, you're very bright, you're very talented. This is kind of dope. So I said, I used to play the drums when I was in junior high, and I loved doing music from time to time up until probably high school. So then I was like, there's this music shop. Let me go over. How about we go to this music shop? So we spent probably 8 hours in this music shop. Like, we overextended our stay. We went from the pianos, we went to the drums, we went to this side, looking at DJ turntables, and I'm sitting up there playing with him. But even though I don't play, I know at that point in time he was very interested in it. And he still does music. I bought him a little drum machine, but it was just that moment, and his eyes lit up. Like, he was like, Dad, this was dope. Can we do this again tomorrow? I said, we ain't gonna do it again tomorrow, but I said maybe down the road we can come back and do it again. But it was just him having a passion for something. I was like, let me get involved in his world, because I always bring him into my world with my passions, and it was just cool to see something from his lens.
Great points. One thing I say too all the time is that as fathers, we learn from our children sometimes. What's one thing that you felt like was a mistake that you made as a parent that you learned to be better at or different at?
Man, I'm still learning.
I'll let you think. I'll tell you
okay.
mine. Spankings. I grew up getting my butt whooped. Never abuse. Like, there were spankings, and I earned every one of them. Like, I was bad. So I got a lot of spankings. So I grew up on spankings. So, naturally, spankings were alive in my household. I didn't spank all the time or anything like that. But, if they need to be disciplined, I would spank. I just learned, like, I felt like that's a mistake. Like, your children have to be disciplined. There has to be discipline. There has to be consequences. But I just feel like over time, it doesn't have to be or shouldn't be a physical pain, because that's more about punishment. And I'm more about teaching. I'm more about them learning from their mistakes. I haven't just spanked a kid in a decade. But for me, that was a mistake that I felt I learned as a parent was not the right way, and it was something that was passed down to me that I didn't have to pass down to my children. And again, I haven't spanked kids in a decade, and I have some of the most well-behaved. I get complimented all the time on my children. And again, I raised 7. So to raise 7, and I don't have issues with any of them. Like, they're all good kids. Like, my daughter Amaya, always tease her because I say, you better marry a rich man, because she is a princess through and through. But it's not a bad thing. Like, I have nothing bad about I have great children, and I don't spank them. Like, there's discipline, but I don't spank. So for me, that was one lesson that I felt like I learned being a parent that was wrong, that I corrected.
Piggybacking off of the spanking, so I got my fair share. I mean, I probably only got maybe 5 whoopings my whole life, only because, like, I was like, man, I learned from my mistakes. So it's funny that you talk about the spankings or the whoopings or the beatings or whatever you talk about.
No beatings.
Well, back in the day, beatings, the Bernie Mac school
Right.
of whooping ass. So I came from that era, but I always made it a point never to whoop my son. And he's 13 years old. I've never whooped my son. What I did, I think one of the mistakes that I made early was, if I got frustrated with my son, showing the frustration maybe coming off verbally. Like, I wasn't dangerous to the point to where I'm cussing him out, I'm doing anything like that, but just like, hey, it's this. But then I was like, my voice naturally carries. So I had to take that scale back, and I'm like, okay, let me talk to him. Let me get down. Basically, I started getting down on one knee when he was young. If he did something he wasn't supposed to be doing, and I would talk to him like, hey, BJ, we're not supposed to be doing this, and this is why. So the things that I learned from is being able to give him, not necessarily give him options to get out of some type of discipline, but if my discipline looks like, okay, you do XYZ wrong. Hey, BJ, do you think that was a good decision? Okay, so here are some situations where that bad judgment gets you in a lot of trouble. And I talk to him like he's a young adult, so he understands it, he comprehends it, and it's not any emotion, it's not any argument. This is just pure like me trying to look out for you, but doing it in a way, and I wouldn't even consider it gentle parenting. This is just a man talking to a soon-to-be young man and being able to use our words and express ourselves. And there are times, too, where I'm like, all right, well, I've said what I needed to say. Anytime that we have some type of discussion, I'm going to say, all right, BJ, do you have anything to say? My ears are open, and I'm going to let you get this off. He's always respectful, but I let him express himself so I can get it from his point of view, and I don't just shut it off like, oh, no, you a kid, stay in the kid's place, get out of here. Like that right there is what causes a lot of folks to get into counseling, and then they need therapy because they weren't able to express themselves. I keep a open environment. Now, I'm going to tell you like this. Now, he ain't going to get over on me. So if you out here, you think you're going to scheme and scam, like I'm from the streets, and I've seen some schemes and some scams, and it's not going to happen like that. But what we are going to do is respect each other. Like the other day, it was something simple, and he said something, or in the past, he said like, oh, yeah, to his mom, and I even though we're not together, I'm like, yo, at the end of the day, when you address your mom, is yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, and the occasional yes. Same thing with me, because it's a sign of respect. I'm not asking you to do anything any more than I have done. It's just going to be that sign of respect. If you come in contact with somebody who's older than you, you can say yes. You can be polite that way. Back in the day, I would have said yes, sir, yes, ma'am, right. No, ma'am. But instilling that into him is very, very big for me. But to take this back full circle, I think one of the mistakes that I did make, again, was just using the tone of my voice and making sure that I'm more intentional, and I'm not trying to put fear into him to where he's scared of me, but put fear into him where it's like it's a sign of respect.
Right. When I talked about like the lessons that I passed down, I said, let your yay be yay, your nay be nay. I learned that from my children. Because, again, I used to do the same thing, because that's the era we came from. We came from the era of, the dad is tough, he's strong, he's this, he's that. But I learned that, hey, I don't have to yell or scream or spank. I just have to be consistent and stand on my yeses and my nos. So that's an important thing to me. So I do a lot of the same things also. And it's actually kind of sad when you think about how damaging a lot of the way we were raised was. And, again, they were doing the best they could, so I'm not knocking them for it. But it's amazing to learn new things as a father and to watch your children grow and prosper with these new techniques that we're learning, that we're growing with. So I think that's important.
Just to add to it, I think it's I won't say it's easy, but it's a little easier to manage these kids now because they're connected to these devices. You get out of pocket with me, guess what? I'm shutting everything down. Give me that PS5. Give me this. Give me that. And they like, oh, well, how long? Ain't no time. When I get tired, when I get ready.
Man.
So then it holds them accountable. And I think that's the key, that fathers, mothers, if you hold yourself accountable, then your kids need to be held accountable too. And they're going to be actions, whether good actions, bad actions. Anything that you do is going to be a negative or a positive reaction that comes with it. So be on the good side of positivity. If you taking care of business and you do what you need to do, we don't have to get out of pocket. And my son has been starting to kind of drive a little bit. I let him come in the driveway, back up the car a little bit, but he'll be driving soon in the next couple of years. So that also right there, that's a privilege. All of these things are privileges.
Right.
Like, it's not something that you're born right. These are privileges. This is icing on the cake. If you take care of business, I'm going to take care of you. And that's the father method of me that I use for my son.
Well, and it's funny you said, because like these devices, that's worse than a spanking.
Right.
Like, man, my kids would kill for a whooping over losing their phone or their vehicle or things like that. So yeah, that's a very important point. At the end of the day, man, we all just learning, trying to figure this stuff out. And like I said, I think one thing you talked about earlier was about being a community. I think that's important. And I just want to encourage men out there that when you sit there, you talked about kneeling down at his level, right? And talking to him directly, talking to like a man. Those are things that we need to do to teach our children emotional intelligence. Like those things are important in those aspects. And I think the more that we do that, the better we'll get at it. So when you do discipline your children, fathers out there, you don't have to be this mean, menacing figure. You just got to be consistent. Be consistent. Be loving. Your kids know when things come out of love. Also, I want to say, we talk about sons a lot because you only have a son, and my oldest 3 are boys. But be the same father to your daughter that you are to your sons, because she needs your experience, your life. She needs your presence just as much as they do. Because one thing I always said is that little boys grew up to be men like their father. Little girls grew up to find men like their father. So guys out here doing women wrong and all this other stuff. My pastor used to always say, do you want your daughter to run into a man like you? So be the man that you want your daughter to meet and your son to be. And I think everything will be all right.
Yeah, I agree. No, that's great advice, man. Yeah.
All right, but so before we end, I was going to ask you what advice you have to fathers, but I think this whole podcast episode has been great advice to fathers. And we talked earlier about the roadblocks that some fathers face, and the biggest one was the mothers. So what's your advice to women that feel like they would like to see their baby dad or their children's father have a more active role in their children's life?
I think you kind of alluded to it. I think the first thing, realistically, is try to get some type of therapy, because a lot of times things that you deal with go unannounced. Like you just builds up, and then that's where the resentment comes in. So if you have this resentment towards someone, then naturally you're not going to want them to take a piece of you, because you're like, oh, I'm mama hen, and I want to make sure that I'm protecting my kids. But get that healing. Once you get past that healing and you've moved on and you're in a healthy space, all the if it's an active father and the father really, really wants to be in that son's life or that daughter's life or their kid's life, allow them that. Like if you allow them that, or you at least come up with some type of happy medium, that starts the process. And then from there, as you let things go and you heal better, hopefully that builds that community that we need. Because again, a kid needs as much support in this world that they could possibly get, coming from the mom, the father, and then the grandparents and extended family. They need all of that. So the quicker you guys get on board for that child or those children, the better this world will be.
I agree. And for me, my advice is, one, have defined boundaries. I think a lot of times the issues come with relationships with children involved because one party is not over it. Either the guy still wants to be with her, so he's still trying to get some, or she's upset that he moved on, and so she's, so a lot of times it's the emotions of the adults that are creating the issues for the children. So have defined boundaries, like, hey, don't be dipping and dabbing and still messing with each other and the sneaky links. Don't do any of that. Like, have it straight defined.
Yeah, shut it off.
Man, shut it off completely. So I think that's important. And then the other thing is, don't feel like you need to define what type of father he is. Like I said, if this is the best he can do for right now, then allow him to do that. I know sometimes women feel like, no, you're going to be there all the way, or you're going to be nothing because it's hurting my children. It's hurting your children more to not have him at all. And I that's coming from somebody who had a father who did some things right and did some things wrong. I would much rather have known my father be in my life in the aspects that he knew how, than to never know about him or have him there in any way, because it gives you a complex as a child, feeling like, well, what's wrong with me? So allow him to be a father in whatever way he can. Now, again, if it's harmful, that's different. But understand what harmful is. It's not always your opinion of what you don't like. That, so I've seen women say, well, he's got different women around, and, he stays up late at night, and that's harmful to my son. That's not harmful to your son. Is it an ideal situation? No, but it's not harmful. Harmful means like my son can be hurt, killed, or damaged, and I know there's emotional damage. I get all of that stuff, right? But if he can be there, let him be there.
Right. I would agree.
But y'all, that's closing part 2 of Dad Talk. A lot of these topics, man, are big, and we're going to keep coming back to them. But we're going to end on this right here. I do want you guys to know that as we progress through these podcasts, we are going to take callers and have guests and things like that. So we will get other people's perspectives. So be prepared for that. But at the end of the day, we're here. We hope you guys are listening. We want you to like, share, repost, and support the channel, man.
Hit us up in the comments. We would love to continue this discussion. This is the community, and we're just trying to basically give people some insight so we can make it a better place. And I mean, if you dealing with co-parenting and you good, chime in. Let us know how it is, or if you're struggling with something, feel free to put it out there.
Yeah, get in the comments, y'all. Y'all have a good one.
Peace.
Peace.